Well, as is at every Division I institution across the country, it's sign and date, and every coach is happy with their signees right now because we haven't actually seen them play on our practice field. We've seen them on highlight tapes and playing everywhere else, and they're awful good players. We'll see how they do when they get here. I'm more into answering questions.
Coach, talk about the signing of Christian Hayward. I mean, he was a USC kid and he came home. When did you guys hear about him and start getting back in touch with him after that, the fact that he went to USC?
Well, the history with Christian is we recruited him very heavily out of high school. We thought we were going to get him. And toward the end, he decided to move on to someplace else. When he decided that was not the place for him, he got in contact with us.
So does he have, how much eligibility is he have?
He'll have 2 years to play two. We expect him to be here the first session of summer school. He's finishing up his AA degree in junior college right now. We expect him to be here for the first session of summer school, and he'll be able to play immediately.
Do you see him at tackle or at end?
I don't know. I mean, he'll be a defensive lineman. And with the addition of him, we've got some real size up front if we want to use it. Sam Meredith will be almost 300 pounds. He'll be almost 300 pounds, and Dontrell will be 290 probably.
Did you bring him in for a visit where you measured him, or where do you get those numbers off? Just in telling you he's around?
We brought him in when he was in high school for a visit, and that's what he was in high school. So I don't think I've actually seen him, so I don't think he's shrunk any.
Would you say you were able to fill your shopping cart, so to speak, Rocky?
Well, you're never completely happy, but we went into it, and there's a couple positions on our team, and I don't want this to reflect on our recruiting classes in the past because some people might see it that way, because we're pretty happy with our freshmen and our redshirt freshmen, but we recruited 7 junior college players to fill holes of seniors that left last year because we don't think in those positions, we're not sure that the freshmen are quite ready to play, even though we think they're going to be really good players down the road. And that was at defensive back and it was at offensive line. So we took we're always going to take a few junior college guys, but we took probably more than we normally would. And that's so that we don't drop off from this year to next year. But other than that, we have a formula. I think everybody does on how many scholarship players we want at each position, and that's how we recruit to fill those spots. So I guess we mastered our shopping cart. I don't know.
You didn't mention kickers.
Well, we have two kickers for the same reason. We have one high school kicker and one junior college kicker. We know the high school kicker has a lot of ability, and he might be our kicker next year, but it's hard on freshmen to be put in that kind of position. So we also have a junior college kicker that's been kicking in junior college for 2 years and has a little more maturity and was 20 out of 21 field goals last year.
So where does Seamus fall into the equation now?
You know what? It's just like every other position. It adds to the competition level. And you either thrive on competition or you fall by the wayside when it's competitive.
Can you talk to the recruitment factor that's come from your being in bowl games, having success over the last few years here, and other things that are going on great here at San Diego?
I think our success over the last 4 years and being in bowl games for 4 straight years has added the availability of recruits that we didn't have available to us in the past. Does not mean we got them all. It means we got in more homes of high caliber recruits than we have in the past. So it has helped. I think the biggest factor of us improving our squad and improving our recruiting is our players in our program. I think our coaches did a nice job. I think they evaluated well. I think they recruited well. But the people that sell our program are our players. And they did a great job of, obviously they feel good about the program and did a great job of letting the recruits know that too. It also allows you to recruit players that fit our personality because right now we have players that believe in what we're doing and know how we do it and believe that's the right way to do it. And so your recruits are going to be the same way, or they're not, because players don't lie to players. They're not going to come here If they don't want to work at that pace and don't want to work that hard and don't want to compete every day in practice, they won't come here.
Coach, a little unusual bringing 3 quarterbacks in one class. I mean, can you talk about just the quarterback competition? I know 2 of them are already here, right?
2 of them are already here. Because of attrition, we want to have 5 quarterbacks in the program. We're going to have 5 quarterbacks in the program.
So is Dingwall still a quarterback?
Adam's not going to play next year. He had his back operated on over the break, and he has a chance to graduate in May. And the pain of the back injury, he just assumed graduate and move on with the next stage of his life.
Did you ever find out what exactly the back injury was?
It was a slip disc, or see, you're asking. You know better than ask me medical questions. I don't know. We'll have to ask the trainers. But it was a serious injury when they got in there. It was a serious injury.
Rocky,
Yeah, go ahead.
the development of in-helmet sensors to detect concussion-level impacts will likely result in more players being removed for the duration of the game, and therefore players lower on the depth chart seeing more action during specific games. Do you feel that some of your redshirt freshmen are ready to step in should one of your first stringers be removed for concussion reasons?
I think all the freshmen in the program right now, and any redshirt in the program right now, has the chance to compete for a lot of playing time. That's why we have spring practice. Some of them, personally, I believe, are not mature enough to handle that right now, and some, I believe, are mature enough to handle that. But guess what? They surprise me every year. Some of the ones I wasn't counting on, they turn out to be stars for us, and the ones I was counting on, they kind of show immaturity. But we had to gain some depth in certain spots. That's why we recruited those junior college players.
Does Chapman right now, do you see him as a quarterback, or do you see him moving right now? Christian Chapman?
No, he's a quarterback. We thought he was the best quarterback in the county. And we signed, if you count Christian Hayward in there, we signed 6 guys from San Diego County. 5 years ago when I first got here, I heard all kinds of complaints about us not recruiting local kids. Signing 6 kids from the county in one recruiting class is pretty significant.
What I remember from that conversation too is that you said you had problems in the past getting kids to stay home, and so you weren't necessarily sure. What's changed about you and your program in the last few years?
The success of our program. And all of a sudden, right now, it's okay to come here. Because guess what? We compete, we beat people we're not supposed to beat, and we go to bowl games. That's overcome the other factor.
Well, one thing I think that would really showcase that is when I talked to Hayward earlier, I said, where else were you thinking about when you signed with USC? And he made it abundantly clear that this was really the only option he wanted, how it was to come here. What does it say about you and your staff that a guy that you fought hard for a couple of years back says, I want to come back here?
Well, I'll put it this way. I believe if Christian Hayward had been a freshman this year, he would have come here. At the time we were recruiting him, that was the first year we actually went to a bowl game.
Can you speak to the running back situation now that Adams?
We recruited 1 extra running back than we would have. I mean, we were going to recruit 2 running backs anyway, and we ended up recruiting 3 because of Adams' departure to the NFL. Now, we have some other running backs already in our program, and we hope one of them steps forward. And we've got a really good speed guy that can make you miss and outrun you, but we need a guy that'll pound it in there too.
Does that mean Derek Dunlap, he's going to start as a running back?
He'll start out as a running back, yeah.
Were there any breath holders today, Rocky, where you were sort of waiting, or you had to go up and slap the fax machine a little bit to see if it was working, or everything came as you wanted?
No, it never comes as you want it. I mean, we had a couple coaches here at 4:30, 4 o'clock this morning because we were expecting a letter of intent from Georgia. Okay, and they can sign at 7 o'clock their time. Well, that one didn't get in till 9 o'clock or something, so we had coaches here from about 4 to 7 without getting any letters of intent. But they all showed up, mostly. The ones we thought were going to show up, mostly. There was a couple that didn't. And that happens all the time to a lot of schools.
And on the other side of that, did you get a couple that you were, hoping to get but weren't sure?
No, in fact, you know how things always work out for the best? If everybody would have signed with us that we thought had a good chance to sign with us today, we would have had a whole string of issues about how many we had the gray shirt, how many we were going to ask to come later, how many, and guess what? It worked out just perfect,
So no
as
one's
it
gray-shirting?
usually does.
So no one will have the gray shirt from this group?
No, now we have some players that have to do some academic work to be NCAA eligible, but no one would have to gray shirt, no.
Do you see Clueless staying as a wide receiver role? Do you see him having a chance on defense? Where do you kind of put him?
I don't know where they'll end up. He'll start at wide receiver. And I think our players do a great job of recruiting and telling them that you get to play where you want to play unless it's going to help the team. And then if it's going to help the team, you play someplace else, you're going to get moved. And I'm sure our players told them that.
Coach DeBro, he was a guy you guys offered at your camp that you held during the summer. Can you talk a little bit about just the coaching staff and their just ability to evaluate during those type of settings? It seems like maybe like a quarter, maybe even a half of your commits you watched in person during the summer, just that attended your camp. How does it feel just knowing that you guys offered those guys that early and got them to stick onto you guys compared to other schools come in and sort of later on?
I think a lot of that has to do with when we put those camps on, our coaches do a great job of evaluating their athletic ability. And we're able to start the recruiting process early. And if they feel comfortable here, because our camps are on this, our passing leagues are on this campus, if they feel comfortable here and have had a good experience while the camp goes on, I think it gives us a leg up in recruiting. And if you can develop a relationship with a recruit early on, and it's a good relationship, those guys are likely to hang in there with you. The ones that you get later are unlikely to hang on with you if somebody else comes in that they like.
How would you rate, I guess, your staff in terms of not just recruiting throughout the process, but compared to other years, fighting off those schools, down the stretch after the dead period, the final dead period, those final 3 weeks?
I don't really believe it has anything to do with the coaches. I think the coaches do a good job of recruiting every year. And they do a good job of evaluating every year. What I think it is a sign of is two things. Number one, the players in our program. If they develop a good feeling with the players in our program and develop a relationship with the players in our program, they're less likely to change their mind. Okay? And then our recent success over the last 4 years makes it less likely that they'll change their mind.
You're referring to player hosts, like during official visits?
No, I think our whole team, but the player hosts are the ones that are with them the most.
Who are like your superstar hosts?
Oh, I don't know. I'd have to go back and see who hosted who. I don't have that off the top of my head.
Coach, a lot of websites like to give grades on people's recruiting classes. If you just had to grade yours, what would you give it?
How about I grade them 3 years from now? And we'll see how many of them are playing and how good they are. I mean, there's a whole bunch of scouting services out there, huh, Ruben, that will star rate your players for you. I mean, Mike just gave me an article. I just started reading it. How many 5-star recruits are on the Denver Broncos active roster? 1. So that tells you how much those damn stars mean.
Coach, with guys like Cameron Kelly and Sykes and Trevelyan, they're listed as athletes. Where do you kind of see them fitting into the picture?
That's a great question. After we get done with spring practice, we'll determine where those guys start in the fall.
But where do you
Okay, we'll start them out. We'll decide that when they get here, because after spring practice, if we don't have enough, or we don't think we have enough quality safeties, guess what? They'll probably start at safety. If we don't have a running back that takes charge that will pound the ball, he'll start at running back. So how spring practice goes, those athletes on there, how spring practice goes, that will determine on where we start them when they get here.
Is it harder to recruit a kid as an athlete or easier? I mean, just not being able to tell them where they might play.
It depends on his personality. The hardest position to recruit as an athlete is a quarterback, because you're honest with them and you tell them that they're going to come here and they're going to play a different position. because you don't think they can play for you at quarterback. And then someone else will lie to them and tell them he's going to be a quarterback, and they go to that school, and then 2 years later they're playing what we told them they were going to play anyway.
Can you
No
talk-
comment, you know it's true, that's why.
I know what you're talking about, yeah. Can you talk about kind of just like the results of last season in terms of positions? I mean, quarterback was kind of struggling at times, offensive line struggled at times, the kicker struggled at times, and you really attacked those positions. Was that always the plan, or was it kind of just based off what happened during the season that kind of make you adjust the needs you really had for this class?
Well, no, I think quarterback and that's the one, we've talked about this before, quarterback's the one position, if they don't see themselves playing as a quarterback here, they're going to transfer. Okay? So we had a couple quarterbacks over the last couple of years transfer out. And then with Adam Dingwall's back, making him unlikely to play, which he's not gonna, he's decided that, we needed depth at quarterback. And we need competition because we don't have an established backup. We need competition at quarterback. So we had to bring 3 in, and 2 of them are here already, so they get to compete in the spring. Okay, so we addressed that. We lost 2 senior offensive linemen, and as you said, we were not happy with our consistency in the offensive line. That's why there's 2 junior college offensive linemen showing up. Not that they're better than the guys we got, but competition makes everybody better. And so now you know why we recruited JC guys. At safety, we lost 5 senior safeties. So instead of counting on a whole bunch of guys that haven't played much in the past, we brought in a couple of junior college safeties with a little more maturity. Does not mean they're going to be the starters, but competition is a wonderful thing.
So who's going to start out this spring at Aztec of the safeties?
Brandon Porter.
Those new players who are going to end up on your scout team are going to be emulating an ACC offensive defense this year for the first time in who knows how many years. Do you feel that having that non-conference game and therefore having the scout team emulate what's essentially a new offensive defense is going to help those players years down the line when they do become regulars?
I think the only thing a scout team helps you develop is techniques and a willingness to stick in there. And it doesn't matter who they're emulating. I mean, they've emulated Big Ten teams in the past. They've emulated Pac-12 teams in the past. Scout team is a rite of passage. If you're on the scout team, that's a very important job you have. You have to realize it's important and hang in there till it's your turn to play. And a lot of kids aren't willing to do that.
Coach, did you hand out any more scholarships for the spring semester? For the, like, Quinn Kaler, guys like that?
Oh, yeah, that was already added in. But he's the only one we added.
Okay.
Okay. And then we have some players on our team that are possible academic problems and all that sort of thing. So there could be 1 or 2 more guys we recruit that show up as good players here later on that maybe weren't academically eligible, all of a sudden become academically eligible. It's kind of a fluid thing. Your roster is a fluid thing.
Did everyone, scholarship player-wise, did everyone return from winter break?
Yep. Mm-hmm. Great question, too.
Other questions for Coach?
Coach, Kevin McGarry talked on some of the videos that you guys put on this morning about how the special teams play has gotten better because of the depth. Do you see that progression in terms of just the quality of players you're bringing in?
I think in certain situations we're a little bit better. I mean, I don't go by stats all the time, but I've looked at the stats, and a couple of the special teams we were ranked 2 in the conference, but some of them we were ranked 8th and 9th in the conference. I think the biggest thing about special teams is we're getting a little bit of better athlete in the program, so there's a chance for us to be good on special teams. Now, the biggest problem last year were the kickers. That makes everything look bad.
Have guys that were ended the season last year kind of injured, like Billy Vaughn, for example, have they been cleared yet for spring?
Billy Vaughn has been cleared to lift weights and do the off-season running. He hadn't been cleared for spring practice, but our trainer says he'll be cleared by spring practice. We have some guys that won't practice in the spring. Sam Meredith's not going to practice in the spring. Don Trell's not going to practice in the spring. Don
What
Trell,
did Trell have?
what's that?
Did he have some sort of?
Don Trell has a wrist that they went in and put some pins in his wrist. I think just yesterday or the day before. Sam is on shoulder issue. I think Feely is going to be cleared for spring ball, but this is really going to make him mad because you guys know this before he does. Feely will probably be cleared for spring practice, but there's a head coach not going to let him do a lot. Okay, so he'll be upset.
Just as a precaution, or why is that?
Yeah, I'm being overly protective, and it'll really piss him off.
That means he'll be ready for the fall then, right? He'll really
Well, that's
be ready.
my idea. He'll be sneaking into scrimmages. You watch. We'll have to take his helmet away from him or something.
How about Derek Lodge? I think he had some knee issues.
He,
this year.
yeah, he's good. He's 100%.
He didn't need any surgery or anything like that.
Nope. Mm-mm. Who else? You probably remember who was hurt more than I do.
Oh, Quaid Miller.
Oh, I tell you another one. David Lamar will probably not go through spring ball. He had his shoulder operated on.
Is Quaid Miller like fully recovered from his back?
Quaid's 100% and cleared. You remember better than I do. Yes.
You mentioned 6 from the county. There's another 3 from the Inland Empire. There's 17 total from California, which means there's 11 that essentially were in no man's land. And yes, other than the Pac-12 teams, it's pretty much you against San Jose State, Fresno State. Do you feel that getting those 11 others says something positive? They chose San Diego State as opposed to the other California schools in the conference?
I think what it did was our security back into the Mountain West Conference made us stay closer to home. Last year, because of the question about what conference we were going to be in, and we were moving to the Big East, I think we expanded our recruiting areas and got guys from a whole bunch of different places because of that. That was our thought. So we put more effort into California this year, whether we recruited against San Jose or Fresno with all those kids, that's probably not true. We recruited against them in a couple situations. We won some, we lost some. But I think we have more California kids on our team because we put more emphasis close to home. And mostly it's because of the league we're in.
Coach, can you talk about kind of just the future of the O-line? I know this year's class, pretty much everyone is like a legit 6'5" and up. Obviously,
They're legit 6'5" and up?
yeah,
You mean that's what they're listed as, yeah.
right.
I'm not sure they're all 6'5", but they're tall.
Yeah.
Yes, they're tall.
They're more tackle type. I think all of them actually were tackles at the previous school they played at. Obviously, you probably won't be using them all those tackles, but is this what you kind of see as the future of your O-line, just having tall guys all around? In terms of
I think our
interior linemen and stuff?
I think our emphasis has changed in the O-line. I think we need to get bigger. And at every position we need to get longer. Partly because the game is changing, partly because of rules. So my personal belief is we need to get a lot bigger in the offensive line, and then at every position we need to get longer. And I mean, the Super Bowl kind of proved that out. They got all those 6'1", 2", all those DBs with real long arms and all those kind of things. I think with the game, with people throwing the ball more and the protection of quarterbacks and receivers, you have to have longer people that make plays on the ball rather than separate them from the ball with hits or ruining a quarterback with sacks. I think they've eliminated a lot of that out of the game.
Coach, Brad Oldman is like an older kid, right?
Yeah, he is.
He didn't play for
I
a
think
long
he's 23.
time. I mean, what does
It's
that
like
bring?
BYU.
What does that bring to you? Just
I wish I could tell you. I don't know because I don't know him well enough yet. He looked good on film so far. He's done everything we've asked him. He acts like a very mature young man.
Was it hard to
What-
find a lot of film on him?
Yeah, it was. Yeah. I mean, we don't have a whole library of film on him, but what we saw was pretty good. And you would expect with his age that he would be more mature, but I've been doing this a long time. Sometimes you have a 17-year-old that's more mature than that 24-year-old on your team.
Rocky, all said and done to reach this sort of landmark during the year, you're always kind of happy when this is done, or what's your thoughts?
I think that all of the coaches are happy that it's over. Not that they don't appreciate the pursuit and the competition in recruiting players, but after a while, it's time to move on. It's time for those guys to decide where they want to go. It's time for them to stop being recruited and get ready for what college life is really about. And so I think every coach that ever recruits is relieved when it's over. They like the process. And to be honest with you, head coaches don't work near as hard at recruiting as assistant coaches do. I mean, I worked much harder when I was an assistant coach recruiting than I do as a head coach, partly because of rules and partly because it doesn't make sense. Because coaches have areas and they get friendly, hopefully friendly. They have good relationships with the coaches and the players and the people in that area. So they do a much better job than a head coach that comes in one time or two times during the recruiting process. So they work much harder than the head coach does.
So you're the closer then?
Not necessarily. I've ruined a few too.
Coach, do you feel like you filled all the needs that you guys had, or was there a position where you wish you could have brought in one more?
No, I think it's pretty balanced. And that's the good part of recruiting athletes. Because if there's a mistake or two in their athletes, not at the offensive line, but mistake any place else, those athletes, I mean, if you look at the athletes, they're big enough they could play defensive end, they could play linebacker, they could play fullback, they could play probably not tight end. They could play slot receiver. That's why you recruit athletes, that hopefully they make you right. If you've made a mistake in one position, they make you right.
And I see you didn't have any tight ends. Is that just because you have confidence in the guys that you brought in last year and like what you see?
I think there's a couple guys in our program that might be tight ends. But right now we think we have enough.
Rocky, you mentioned how with the assistants, how they do most of the recruiting. Weren't you the primary recruiter for Hayward back when he was getting recruited? Were you like his primary
No,
assistant?
Coach Mack was.
Okay, so
He was the primary. He had Point Loma High School.
okay, so did he kind of recruit him again this time around, or did Hayward?
That's
directly-
when Christian called. That's who he called. It was
Oh.
Coach McDaniels.
Okay. Was that first conversation kind of like, I made a mistake, I want to come back, or?
I don't know. I wasn't involved in the conversation. Coach Mack came down and told me, he said, Christian's leaving SC. He wants to come here. And I said, great.
Okay.
Are those your guys down there making all that noise?
Yeah, that's one of the groups. They have several groups during the day. It sounds like we're doing something good, huh?
Anything else for Coach?
Your coaching staff also the same, including the GAs? Anyone?
So far.
Are you expecting any changes?
Well, no, I'm not expecting any, but there's always people looking to move up in the coaching world, and GAs are always looking for a job. I mean, they'd like to really get paid for working hard. It's kind of the time has kind of passed though, because most of the coaching changes are over. I don't think it would be hard I don't know. There might be another college coaching change, but I doubt it.
Does it help that you guys have been able to keep the same staff together?
I think it continuity helps everything.